Joe, Florida State had their appeal, if I'm not mistaken, denied, or they were denied. And this has been a long, blown-out pause, but blown-out legal battle when it comes to Florida State trying to attempt to leave the ACC. Now, I will remind everybody that Clemson also said a lot of the same things that Florida State did not too long ago about potentially leaving the ACC as well. Joe, what are your thoughts on what's going on with Florida State right now in their current legal battle trying to leave the ACC?
Yeah, just for the quick, the full description of what happened. A judge in North Carolina denied Florida State's request to dismiss the ACC's lawsuit against the school. So the ACC countersued. They denied their request to dismiss it. And ultimately, though, what came out of this, and I referenced the article on CBS Sports that I read, the exact quote that stood out to me, the one notable win for Florida State was the judge dismissed the ACC's argument that the Seminoles breached fiduciary duties to the conference, which basically states, and it's saying that they still have an argument, that it's still going to be heard, while they're dismissing the notion that the ACC, that Florida State shouldn't have to be sued by the ACC. They're still acknowledging that Florida State has an argument here. I think, though, that one thing that kind of signals to me, and what I take away from all of this, I still support Florida State. I still think that Florida State absolutely has an argument, but this to me is a foreboding sign that it is not going to turn out as the way that they think it will. And I think that they are going to end up getting screwed despite having a powerful argument, that they're stuck in a really, really bad financial situation and that they would do much better on the open market.
So exactly what we talked about a month ago, right? Like, I mean, when I had a lot of Florida State fans mad at me, like, oh, Blake hates Florida State. No, I'm trying to be real here. You signed a contract. And to the way that I would understand it, like most civil cases work, there are majority of times buyouts in those clauses. Like if you get fired at work, a lot of you have severance packages. It's a buyout of you getting fired. My bottom line, Joe, here is this. I don't disagree with Florida State wanting to make more money. I don't necessarily disagree with them, in reference to trying to leave and go somewhere where they will be, where they feel like they're more prosperous. But they feel like the vision has moved to Tobacco Road, North Carolina, Duke, other places, whatever, than maybe themselves. I actually somewhat disagree with that, but in and of itself, I think that this sparked too because of, I don't want to say because they didn't make the playoff and it ramped up even more and the SEC team got in over them. I remind everybody, Clemson carried that conference for a long time too. It's not, if you want to be the best, you got to beat the best. And I think that this comes off that they are losing in some aspects, which makes them think that it's the ACC's fault. Well, no, you agreed to the same contract that everybody else in that conference agreed to. When it comes down to it, I'm going to be honest, and I can be wrong, but I would be shocked if they don't have to pay the ACC to get out. Unless they hold on. And what you could be the smart thing, why not hang on to 2026 when ESPN can void the contract? Why would you spend hundreds of millions of dollars?
Patience.
No patience. Zero. By the way, we got a 12-team playoff now. So I think we do. I mean, what do I know?
We do. We have a 12-team playoff. That part is true.
Okay. So you're going to get into the playoff. ESPN can void with the ACC in 2026. Sometimes it's like if you're at a job, Joe, and you want to leave, but it takes time and process, right? Like there are things that sometimes, Joe, I want to lose 100 pounds. I told you, like dieting, working out, it's not going to happen overnight. Why not wait to 2026 instead of putting yourself in so much, and even right now, spending the money that you are with in these legal cases? It's nonsensical. You can say that you're mad with the ACC. You can put out a statement saying that you want to leave. You don't have to fight them in court. What do you fight them in court for? For ultimately for you to have to go and win and lose? You're going to lose. You signed a contract for a TV unless ESPN stood up and ESPN voided something with the ACC and did away with them, then Joe, you come to a place where I don't see a way out for them the way that they think that they're going to get out. I want to throw this another way for you too. I think it's more of a win that the appeal to dismiss, which they were just trying to throw this out. Basically, what a dismissal is, obviously, is what it sounds like, is they're just trying to throw it out. They're going to give Florida State their day in court, and Joe, at that day, I think they're going to lose.
By the way, I got really distracted for Antonio asking if we're watching WrestleMania. That made me laugh. But to get to your point,
by the way, I watched WrestleMania last night. The Rock and Roman Reigns won.
I saw some of the clips of it. I'm not a big WrestleMania guy, though.
I'm not either. But The Rock is in it. I'm like, and it's on Peacock. It's not like you got to purchase pay-per-view.
To get back to what we're talking about, though, I don't think it's a total foregone conclusion that they're gonna lose, and I think that the very clear reasoning why they're pushing for this, partially impatience, partially because they want to be one of the early teams to be able to pick where they end up. You know, they want to be in the best situation because they deem themselves to be one of the most well-represented brands in college football, them and Clemson, that are not being given this necessary support that they need. And that's kind of why I stand with them, why I stand and think that their argument makes sense. But, and I don't have the contract, nor do I have the patience to read through the disgusting contract that it's probably ridiculously long to know how effective it is to get them out of it. That's why they hired lawyers. I see your argument, and you didn't have this previously, that is it really worth their time and effort and money to go forward in trying to take them to court? I will add this, though, in a somewhat of a counter. It's too late. It is way too late for them to try and go backward. Their displeasure, and I think that this all comes down to that meeting that happened, I think it was last summer, when there apparently was a really heated whole argument that had happened during this meeting with some of the top teams, and when there was the whole
remember
clique. Yeah, the whole little clique that was the Super 7 or something stupid like that they called it. I just think that the relationship is soured so much that it feels as though they're doing it fully out of spite. That kind of feels like where we've gotten to with this, where both sides, it's just a really messy divorce, and one side's going to get the house, the other side's going to get the car, and one side's going to get effed and the other side won't.
Yeah, and I think it ramped up too, Joe, when they didn't make the playoff over Alabama, right? And from a social media aspect, they got more pissed off. Now, I think we need to throw Clemson into this too now, okay? Because Clemson didn't sue. I mean, Clemson did sue the ACC. They went into federal court and they filed a suit on them as well. Joe, I got to be real with you. I mean, there comes a point where, like we were always waiting for the hat to fall of which other university was going to follow Florida State, and it was Clemson. If I'm them, I'm sitting on my hands.
Well, I actually would throw this out there, and again, I am not a legal expert, but I would argue that if Florida State and Clemson can convince one or two other teams to actively pursue their own lawsuits, that will divert attention and resources. Like there's only so many resources and time that the ACC can dedicate to this. So say you get 4 teams on board, that's a lot of goddamn time and energy and money.
But the problem with that is if they're all making the same countersuit, all three, a federal judge can put them all in one and make one firm ruling. So you got to be careful on how you're doing that.
See, I'm not a legal expert. I wouldn't have thought that.
You remember when Virginia wanted to sue the NCAA too, and the federal court put them both together? That's exactly what they would do. Now, the question becomes for the ACC, Joe, if they do what we think that they're going to do and win this, what is their future, in your opinion?
What is the ACC's future?
Because look, if you get a payout, let's just say it's $100 million if you get $200 million, for an example, I mean, they got $200 million that they could throw at, hypothetically, to Notre Dame or whoever they want to throw to. And it's going to be more than that if they were to leave. I guess the question becomes, like, if they win these, then what?
Well, that's what I don't like. I don't know how to interpret it, because say you win, the relationship's bad already and it's getting worse. That why would you want to keep these schools around that might not actively sabotage, but just don't want to be there?
I don't think that the ACC wants them to be there if they don't want to. I think they want their
they
money.
just want their money. Yeah, I think that's
Right.
true. I would also argue though that just because they've got money, I mean, just because Notre Dame gets dangled a fat check, I don't think that, because we've seen that they have.
I'm just throwing them out
Right.
there. I'm just throwing
But
them
that's
out
their but that's their best option. That really is their best option, unless, like as I mentioned earlier, they start throwing money around to UTEP and UTSA and Tulane. Like, does that really make the conference better? If they were smart, they would. And on this
wait until 2026 and let this be void.
No, I was going to make a jackass take and say that they would merge with the Big 12.
They could. I mean, they could. I don't know. I don't think that they'd merge. But you know what's very interesting in all of this? You know who we really hadn't seen anybody like has ESPN or well, let's just say, has ESPN backed Clemson or Florida State?
We wouldn't really know that.
If ESPN really wanted the ACC done with, they can do it. And we might have to wait and see until 2026 until they let them do it.
That's the way that I see this, is because, I mean, ESPN is a massively large corporate monstrosity owned by an even bigger corporate monstrosity. So there, as you're talking about, because contractually, they're not going to publicly or silently back one of these schools because they need to wait till 2026.
Well, you know why I think ESPN's not saying anything?
Just want to watch it play out and see what happens.
No, I think it's deeper than that. I think they knew that it was going to be Saban's last rod. I think the executives knew, and they put Alabama over them, and then Florida State got more pissed off, and they're mad at was it not Jim Phillips, but Boo Corrigan or whoever in the hell that they're mad at that they didn't get into the playoff. Newsflash, man. I mean, look, I know it sucks. I would hate it if it were my school. Okay, I legitimately, I would. But there comes a time where when you got a Nick Saban Alabama team that just comes off a win against Georgia, sorry, maybe your brand or people don't think that your brand's big enough. And I hate saying that about Florida State. I think they got a massive brand. I think Florida State's a fantastic university. But you know what the executives just told you? You weren't bigger than them. And that was the bottom line. So you can be mad at Boo Corrigan. You can be mad at the ACC. And by the way, I got to be real, Joe. I've said this before. They have had bad decisions athletically multiple times, right? Like, okay. I mean, and so they have not been completely well ran. Some of your financial issues are your own doing.
I don't think, though, that it's fair to say that there's any lack of brand size for Florida State.
No, I think that what I'm saying is they think that the reason they didn't get in was because of the SEC. No, you didn't get in because you weren't bigger than Alabama.
I think it's actually the inverse. I think it is more so that they blame the ACC for negatively representing.
That's what I was trying to say.
BetOnline remains your top spot for all of your live betting action and contests. NFL, college football, UFC, NHL are all in full swing. BetOnline is your number one source for wagering news, odds, trends, and predictions with both desktop and mobile access at any time. Head to BetOnline today and use promo code BELIEVE, that's BLEAV, for 50% off your first deposit. That is a 50% welcome bonus. BetOnline, where the game starts.